Okay, students, so today in our class we are going to discuss the second subunit of your chapter number 2 of your history book, and the name of the subunit East India Company begins trade in Bengal. Begins trade in Bengal. So it is in page number 11 of your NCERT book 1. So what was happened after the East India Company, they came to India and they got the right to establish their first factory at Surat. We will start from that portion. Okay, you can't hear me. Let me check. Okay, now you can hear me, students. Can you hear me, students? Can you hear me, students? Hello? Okay. So today we are going to discuss about the subunit East India Company begins trade in Bengal. It is in page number 11 of your history book, NCERT book 1, chapter number 2. So you have already read in previous chapter, in previous subunit, that how did the East India Company came to India, and after eliminating the Portuguese from the Indian Ocean region, they eliminating their competition, they got the right to establish a factory in Surat. And finally, in 1611, someone says 1612, they established a factory in Surat, in Gujarat. If I draw the peninsular map of India, means the map of South India, so this is our today's Bangladesh. At that time those are not exist, so nothing was there called Bangladesh and all. So it is, so for your convenience I am drawing that this is Surat. Okay, so in Surat they established their first factory in 1611, someone says 1612, and also they established another factory in 1611, it is in Masulipatam. And it is in here, in Andhra Pradesh. So you have read in class 7, chapter number 6, that Masulipatam actually a trading post established by the Dutch East India Company. Previously it was a fisher folk town, but later on it was a trading post established by the Dutch. And as per a treaty, when there is a competition between Dutch East India Company, English East India Company, they made a treaty, and as per the treaty, the Dutch East India Company now started their trade and shifted their trade and commercial activity towards Southeast Asia, means the Spice Islands. Those are called Spice Islands, today known as the different island under Indonesia, Malaysia, Java, Borneo, Sumatra, Bali, etc., and Singapore, all these regions. And the East India Company, they said that we will continue our trade and commercial activity in Indian subcontinent. So in this way, they solved their disputes on ocean trade, on Indian Ocean trade. Okay, so I think you have understood. After that, they found that Bengal at the time the most prosperous state under the Mughal Empire, and from the Bengal the huge amount of revenue also collected. So the British, they very much eager to come and establish a factory in Bengal. So before the arrival of the Britishers, Portuguese, they first arrived in Bengal, and already they have a factory on the bank of river Hooghly, and the name of the place they also named it Hooghly. Okay. So long ago, these places also prosperous trade and commercial centers like such as Shoptogram, okay, or Shadgaon. And on beside the Shoptogram, they established their factory, and when the Portuguese were defeated and in the naval battle, in the trade, and they were their power decreased in the Bengal, so then the East India Company also established a factory in near Shoptogram in Hooghly. You can see all the stations through the railway, those railway lines still exist. Okay. In through local train, if you go from Burdwan to Kolkata, you can also see those stoppages. Okay, that Adi Shoptogram, Hooghly, okay, Hooghly Ghat, etc. So all those places actually at the time the famous, very busy trade and commercial centers. And in 1651, the East India Company also established their factory in Hooghly. So first you have to know what is the factory. I am mentioning several times the word factory. That factory is not a place where they produce anything. Okay, the factory means actually the warehouses, where warehouses for the goods for export were stored, and it had offices where company officials sat and for their official works, and also some quarters also there for the residential quarters for their company officials and their families. So as trade expanded, the company now persuaded the merchants and traders from different part of the country as well as from the Europe to come and settle near the factory. And by 1696, it began building a fort around the settlement, and they need another settlement for another factory for their increased goods and other commodities. And 2 years later, it bribed the Mughal officials into giving the company zamindari rights and over 3 villages. And in 1696, they purchased 3 villages around the fort. That fort named Fort William. It is today the headquarters of the Indian Army Eastern Command. So around the Fort William, a British gentleman named Job Charnock purchased 3 villages, the Sutanoti, Gobindopur and Kolikata, from the local zamindars. And they also got the zamindari of those villages, means the right to collect the revenue from this region and establish a city. So later all these small settlements grew into a city that is today known as Kolkata, and at that time in Calcutta in 1696. What happened after? So after receiving the grant, the zamindari of the region of the Calcutta, and they persuaded the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to issue a farman granting the company the right to trade duty free. After the death of Aurangzeb, they also got a farman from the Mughal Emperor Farrukh Shah in 1717 to duty free in Bengal. To trade duty free in Bengal in 1717. It's called Farrukh Shah's Farman, and as per the Farman, the company can trade duty free in Bengal, and they had to pay a certain amount, more or less 3 crore rupees yearly to the Mughal Emperor Farrukh Shah. Okay. The exact amount may be different, but and what happened after that? After getting the Farman, the company tried continuously to press for more concessions and manipulate the existing privileges they have got in the time of Aurangzeb. And they started carrying their private trade using the Farman. They make various fake copies of the original Farman issued by the Mughal emperors and carrying on their private trade. Whenever the company official asked them for the revenue or duty, trade duty, they shown that copy that we have the right to trade duty free. And in this way, all the company officials, they continue their personal and private trade along with the company trade. And as a result, it causing an enormous loss of revenue for the Bengal. Okay, so the Bengal government, they had faced enormous loss of revenue. So how could the Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan, you have already read that Murshid Quli Khan at the time they ruled Bengal. After the death of Aurangzeb, he declared it independence. And how could the Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan, not protest? So obviously there is some conflict between the Murshid Quli Khan and the Britishers. Now the next subunit, what happened further? So I am rubbing in this one. I think you have written all the important years and you have understood this portion. So I am rubbing the board. Okay, so next one, it is the how trade led to the battle. So after the death of just Onik, just for 5 minutes, I am finishing this class after 5 minutes, okay? If it possible, then you can join for another 5 minutes. You can continue for 5 minutes, okay? So now how trade led to the battle, that through the early 18th century, the conflict between the company and the Nawab of Bengal intensified. After the death of Murshid Quli Khan in 1727, the descendants of Murshid Quli Khan sat on the throne, but they were very much weak. So that's why they cannot take any firm step against, they could not take any firm step against the Britishers, the British East India Company. But in 1740, the Army General of Murshid Quli Khan, the Alivardi Khan also killed the last descendants of the Murshid Quli Khan, Sarfaraz Khan, and sat on the throne. And now on, the Murshid Quli also against the activities of the Britishers, like the trade duty-free, trade and commercial activities, as well as they started making fortification around their city, Calcutta, and surrounding their factory. So, followed by Alivardi Khan. When Alivardi Khan also died in 1756, his grandson named Siraj-ud-Dowla sat on the throne. And what happened? Siraj-ud-Dowla was very young at the time. So when he saw all the activities of the British East India Company, so all these things are not very clear to him. And he understood that the activities are more political. All the activities of the British East India Company are more political than economic. So the conflict between Siraj-ud-Dowla and the British East India Company intensified when they refused to grant the company, when Siraj-ud-Dowla refused to grant the company concessions and demanded large tributes for the company's right to trade and denied it to right to mint coins. At the time, the British East India Company also mint their own coins. Mint means to producing their own coins on the name of their and name and image of their own king, the King of England. But this is how it is possible that when an independent ruler also there and they are trading in a different country, they cannot issue coins on the name of their king. So it very much humiliating for the Nawab Sirajuddaula. And also he ordered the British East India Company to stop the fortification around Calcutta. And there was a ritual at the time. Whenever a new Nawab sat on the throne, the subordinate rulers had to pay some sort of tribute or Najrana. But the British East India Company, they directly refused to give anything further. So in this way, the Nawab became very much angry, and Nawab, accusing the company of deceit, they claimed that the company was depriving the Bengal government of huge amounts of revenue and undermining the authority of the Nawab. Through their fake copies of the Farman, illegally they started trading in Bengal, and it causes the huge loss for the Bengal government. And also they undermining the authority of the Nawab, refused to pay any taxes. So they also accused, the Nawab of Bengal also accused the Britishers that they were writing disrespectful letters and trying to humiliate the Nawab and his officials. And also they had given the shelter to the Nawab's enemy. On the other side, the company's part, on its part, declared that the unjust demands of the local officials were ruining the trade of the company. They asked for bribe most of the cases, and the trade could flourish if the duties were removed. And their trade could flourish only the duties were removed, and if the company of the officials of the Nawab could stop taking bribes. And it was also convinced that to expand trade, it had to enlarge its settlements. They also convinced the others that they expand the fortifications and their other things, buy up villages and rebuild its force to improve their trade and commercial activities, to improve their trades. So in this way, both the parties have their own narratives, and in this way, the conflicts of the parties led to a fierce battle between them, and that is known as the famous Battle of Plassey. So in the next day, we are going to discuss what happened in the Battle of Plassey. How did the British forces encountered the forces of Nawab Sirajuddaula, and what happened after. Okay. So if you have anything to ask, you can ask me. Okay, so all the students are requested here to mention their name and presence in the chat box. I will take your attendance. So thank you everyone. Thank you for watching. See you in the next class with another subunit. Have a nice day.